Good evening, everyone.
We are?
We are live.
Hi, folks. Welcome to our Saturday Night Live in support of our Purple Heart Project. We do this try to do this every second Saturday night. And the purpose of it, as I mentioned, is to help support our Purple Heart Project. We have our next class coming in a week from tomorrow. And I haven't seen the list yet of who's coming, but there'll be 7 combat wounded vets and 7 civilians. If I can find out, I would have given you all a shout out. And then we have our final class of the year is the 3rd week of October. And these are expensive, cost a lot to put them on, about $320,000, $350,000, something like that, for the 6 that we do each year, each summer. So if you'd like to join us in honoring these people, please donate. Consider donating. We're a 501c3 now in the United States. We are in the process of getting the same designation in Canada. The Purple Heart Project, the Canadian chapter just received its official title as a corporation 2 days ago. And then sometime in the next 6 months, it will receive the same charitable donation status, so we can give you tax receipts for your donation. Tonight's topic is
Scrapers.
Scrapers and scraping, and we're dedicating this in honor of those who died, the first responders who died in 9/11, seeing as it was just passed. So tonight we're giving away special prizes for anyone who wants to enter a draw that is a first responder. So that would be ambulance, EMTs, firemen, police. Is that right?
Yep.
I think so. So if you're one of those, our draw is for you tonight, and we're going to give away a bunch of our saws. All right, Frick, give me a question, would you?
All right.
The show on the road.
First one comes from Oberon Robinson in Ontario, Canada.
What's his first name?
Oberon?
Oberon?
I think I'm pronouncing that correctly. He says, how do you judge when your scraper burr is the right size?
How do you judge when you're did you say scraper burr?
Yes.
How do you judge? Well, I do it by feel. So how am I going to explain that to you? Well, I will suggest that one of the problems is that people have a tendency to take that little burr and they wrap it right around, and then it doesn't work at all, because the point is the edge that actually does the cutting is no longer accessible because you brought that all the way around. So you just want it to be there so you can just feel it with your hand when you drag it across. And I'll show you what I mean. I had one I prepped just the other day. There it is. So when I have that in the vise, I just grab my fingers like this, and you can kind of tell when you've got enough there that it'll actually pick up a shaving. And then, of course, the best way to determine that is to actually try it and see what it does. And you'll know, when you get it right, it works beautifully. When you don't have it right, all you're going to get is a bunch of heat and dust. It should actually pull shavings, and I'll demonstrate it tonight so you can see. But that's a tough question to answer, in that I don't know of any way of actually measuring it other than trying it. But you should be able to feel with your hands as you drag across there. You should feel a real bite. Now, try another one, Frick. See if we can do better.
Bruce Butters in Pointe Claire, Quebec.
Hey, Bruce.
He says, does a spoke shave come under the scraper theme? How do you sharpen a spoke shave blade?
No, it doesn't, but I can show that to you real quick. How many do we have on, Frick?
186.
And counting?
Yep.
So the difficulty in sharpening a spoke shave blade is the fact that it is so small. It's hard to hold on to. So I have a small pair of vice grips to extend the blade, or it acts to extend the blade. There. So this is a little Lee Nelson Preston spoke shave. So if you can imagine trying to sharpen this, there's just nothing to hold on to. So I take a pair of vice grips, grab the blade like that, and now you can go in, find your primary, come up a little, and then just sharpen it like you would. Bear in mind that it's usually sitting at a fairly low angle, so you can't get too steep on there. Get your burr, find your primary bevel over here, come up just a little bit higher than you did on that previous stone. That's your fine stone. Take that off. Guess I can't do that yet. And then you can't reach to the other side, so I just put the end of the blade on the steel rule to do the Charlesworth ruler trick. And then just do a little bit of that. A little bit of this and a little bit of that. Where's he going? Frick, yeah. I'm going to need another question. You go to the bathroom or what?
Well, I didn't get to eat, so I was going to grab.
None of us did.
Oh, really?
No.
Okay. I thought he was an inside worker.
So there you go. Nice and sharp. Close enough. So a little pair of vice grips really does marvels. What else do I do that? Oh, I use that for sharpening that little squirrel tail plane too. It has a small blade. Anything small like that, just a really inexpensive way to extend the blade so you can grab hold of something. Next, Frick.
Jim Pearson in Saranac Lake, New York.
Jake, you know where that is, don't you?
Yeah.
Will scraping give you
Hey, Jim.
Will scraping give you the same quality of finish as planing?
Well, that's an interesting question. Yes and no. If the wood can be planed, then you get a better finish from a plane. Now, I got to qualify that. Plane's got to be sharp. And I'm not saying that to be funny, because a lot of people have no idea what a sharp plane is because they've never experienced it. If it can't be planed, then you're going to get your best surface from your scraper. And it tends to be that the harder the wood, and you know, something like a piece of Vera wood or Cocobolo, it performs better with the scraper. And the softer the wood, you get down to something like pine or cedar, scrapers just don't work because the wood is not resilient enough. So I've got a piece over here. What were we doing, Jake? Was it the Vera wood?
What were we doing for what?
The other day when we were demonstrating, I think it's this piece right here. So this is this stuff doesn't float. This is Vera wood. It's heavy. It has a specific gravity greater than 0, or greater than 1. Sorry, but off the scraper, it just gave a beautiful finish. Beautiful. Next, Frick.
Next one comes from Dan Elsey in Culpeper, Virginia.
Hey, Dan.
What are the advantages and disadvantages of hand scrapers versus scraper planes?
Well, okay, let's give you an example here. So there's a scraper plane. There's a Stanley number 80. And then there's a scraper blade, or just a hand scraper. So if I'm working into a vertical surface, meaning, if I had to be able to go in and start, no, another trip over to here. Instead of describing it, if I can show it to you, it's going to be a lot better. If I was, I don't know why I would be doing it, but if I was having to come in and literally work right to this corner, well, there's only one option, right? The cabinet scraper. The problem with the cabinet scraper is it has no sole, it has no reference. You literally, all you have is a cutting edge. So if you've seen me talk about this before, what I've said is I'll hold it on an angle like this, and I'm not doing that because I want a shearing cut. It's doing that because if I'm trying to get rid of ripples from the thickness planer, and you go like this, there's a tendency for that single cutting edge to ride those ripples. If you turn it like that, now you've essentially created a sole that is whatever length from here to here, if you follow that. So the disadvantage is you don't really have any reference sole, whereas on this one you do. So there's your sole is that long, which is going to prevent it from digging in, better chance of getting a flat surface. And then on a scraper plane, you've got an even longer surface. So that's an advantage of these over this. This gets really hot. You burn your thumbs if you get any amount of work to do. Though it's nice, both of these have, obviously doesn't matter if it gets hot. You're not touching the blade directly. This one works the same way in that when you're scraping, you're pulling back with your index finger and you're pushing forward with your two thumbs down here, and you're creating a little bit of a bend to that blade and causing it to dig in more in the middle. This operates the same way. There's a thumb screw back here, and as you tighten that thumb screw, you're causing the center of the blade to bow down below the surface of the sole, and that's going to cause that to dig in. And this one doesn't have that. It's got a big, huge, thick blade. What other advantages, disadvantages? They're all prepared. Well, they're not quite prepared the same way, but close enough. You're going to polish at least two surfaces. You're going to polish the edge. You're going to polish the face. You're going to use a burnisher to create that little bit of a burr. This one and this one both can be used without a burr. You can use a burr if you want to have it a little more aggressive. That's about it. I would think that, well, then the other one would be the cost. What's this cost? 15?
Yeah.
$15 versus if you're buying a new one of these, you're probably going to pay $100. And if you're buying a new one of these in a Lee Nielsen, you're probably going to pay $300.
Yeah, easily.
So how's that for a breakdown of pros and cons? Next, Frick. Do we have any? If we have any first responders on tonight, speak up, and we'd love to give you a shout out. Tell us what you do.
There's a little bit of issue because the draw link got posted before you said first responders. So now.
The what?
Well, you had mentioned that the draw is only for first responders, but the draw link had already been posted before that.
Well, can we do a separate one?
Not really. Not unless we created an extra draw.
Well, can we do an extra draw?
We'd have to create a whole new form and link and everything.
Well, how hard is that? What else do you got to do?
Sit here and read questions. Yeah, let me see what I can do. So for
See if
now,
you can do that. We'll have a separate draw for first responders.
For now, the link that's posted in the chat, everybody can enter that draw, and
Yeah.
I'll work on a different one.
That's our giveaway associated with the amount that we raise. So we give away one prize for every $1,000 we raise. And then this other one is just going to be a separate draw courtesy of RC Woodworking. And we're going to give away some saws to some first
Lee Nielsen
responders.
doesn't even list that plane anymore.
Oh, are you serious?
Yeah.
Well, there you go. You can't even buy it.
They only sell the cabinet makers version.
Huh. Well, it must still be struggling with manpower. Okay, next, Frick.
Wayne Wright in Newport News, Virginia.
Hey, Wayne.
Are triangular or round steels the best for creating burr?
Well, there's round ones. So the advantage, and what he's talking about is a burnisher, and I'm going to give him a good answer. So burnishers come. I don't have a triangular one, but if you imagine, it looks like a triangular file, only it's smooth. and then a round one just looks like a steel rod. The advantage of the round one is it's really easy to polish because you can put it on the lathe and do it. The other ones, you either have to use them the way they come, or you've got to go through and do what I did, which was a tremendous amount of work to get that big surface. The reason I don't like round ones, when you do it, you've only got one contact point, you know, that radius. And I think what you have a tendency to do is put bumps in your edge as you push down on it. And I spent hours, days, might even weeks polishing this up. And one day I was working on it or what, but I looked at this and I said, here I have all of these pieces of flat, highly polished steel sitting there looking at me. Why not use that? So now what I use for a burnisher, and your burnisher needs to be harder than the steel that's in the scraper. And the scraper steel is somewhere in the low 50s and on the Rockwell scale. And your chisels are somewhere in the low 60s. So as long as your chisel is harder than your scraper, it's going to work. I just take a piece of that yellow tape that we sell so much of because it's nice and durable. I put that on there just to protect my finger from that cutting edge. A little bit of oil on there, and now I have a perfect burnisher, which is a nice, highly polished, flat, smooth piece of hard steel. So I would say for your burnisher, use your chisel back. Next, Frick.
Steve Peel in Edson, Alberta.
Hi, Steve.
Megan-
What's with all the Canadians?
Yeah, we do have quite a few.
God save the king now. Wow, he's a bit of a dude.
Manganese high carbon steel and Sheffield steel, which holds a better edge?
Say it again. Sheffield steel and
Manganese high carbon steel.
manganese high carbon steel. Haven't got a clue. But I will share with you my opinion. After doing this, I started woodworking seriously in the early 1980s. I did it in the 70s too, but I got serious about it in the early 80s, so however many years that's been. And I went through a period of time where everybody seemed to take a side. You either liked O2, or you either liked A2 steel. Hey, Ken. What? Yeah, well, by our standards, usually would be, but you either had O1, which is oil hardened, high carbon steel, or you had A2. And after the amount of time I've spent doing it, I don't know if there's enough of a difference to really make a great argument for one or the other. So, although I can't address the one you just mentioned, I would suggest, if you can afford it, buy one of each and try it, because I don't think you're going to notice that big of a difference. You do want it to keep an edge. You want it to hold an edge, and you want it to be, it has to be soft enough to be able to sharpen it with your tools. Now, I will say this, I have a friend in Ontario that I made a workbench for way back in the early 2000s, Ivar Nielsen, and he was a machinist. And he made me a blade. Any idea where it is, Jake? But how about one? I just need one.
It's in one of the
In one of these?
20s, I think it's in the 7.
Huh?
It's in the 7.
Oh, yeah. I think you're right. Yeah, so here's a blade that was made, and I don't remember what it was made out of. He told me. Not that I would have remembered anyway. But it's a hard steel. I think it was tested 64 in the Rockwell. Is that the one from Ivar?
Yeah, see how it's ground?
Yeah. And it was so hard. I couldn't get, the only thing that would touch it was the diamond stone. Wouldn't even scratch it with water stones. And when I got these, it was before I started using Shaptons, but even on the ceramics. So it was so hard, it was just a pain. I mean, your sharpening time was ridiculous. So any gain you had in having it hold an edge a little bit longer was used up by how long it took to get an edge. And it was brittle too. I remember when they arrived, he had sent me 3, and there was a piece broken right off the corner just because it was that brittle. So it's a fine line you walk on that. hard enough to hold an edge, soft enough to be able to be sharpened, but you can't go too far in either direction, or performance payback isn't there. So I can't answer your question specifically, but try it, see what you think. Next, Rick.
Just a second. I'm posting the link to the first responder draw.
Ken, do you want to go over sometime and bring us one of each saws? We're going to give away some saws tonight.
One of each of everything?
Well, depending on how big our audience is, depending on how we do.
All right, so I just posted the link for the draw that is specifically for first responders.
So we're not going to make you show your badge. It's on your honor. So if you are, first responders are EMTs.
Paramedics, firefighters, and
paramedics are both firemen and ambulance, right?
right.
Okay.
Well,
Yes, retired qualified.
And retired, yeah, that's right. Thank you, Jake. Retired qualify as well. So if you're retired police, law enforcement, if you're retired or current active duty ambulance, or retired or active duty fireman, fire person, what do we call them? Sign up. Fire guys. Guys.
or gals.
Oh, but it's getting really difficult.
Um,
Anyway,
okay.
put your name in the draw and we'll send you some stuff. Show you how much we appreciate you.
Okay.
Next question, Frick.
That one we already asked.
As soon as Jake's ready to put the camera on, I want to take you around and show you how we're doing on our next big project to raise funds for this endeavor.
Okay, so Jesse says,
Jesse who?
Jesse Oscar.
Jesse? Where does he live?
Doesn't say. With my old hands, I cannot hold a scraper well. Are there any jigs that will help me hold a scraper?
A scraper blade? Yeah, somebody makes one. I can't think of who it is. I'm trying to picture it. But what you can use a pair of gloves. If it's a matter of it being too hot or whether you have arthritic hands, I'm not sure which one we're addressing. But I just like rubber gloves because you get a lot of grip with them. Some people use those little thumb pads that you can put on there to just help. But if you, probably that number 80 scraper is probably the best option as far as cost. If you're going to do a lot of scraping and you don't want to use a cabinet scraper, just handheld, this is probably a good one. You can buy them new, you can buy them used. There's not much to them. It doesn't take a lot to flatten the sole, but you usually have to do that. That's the only part of it that's critical. Next, Frick.
John Root.
Hey, John.
He's
What?
well, something happened to the questions when Luther sent them back to me. So, okay, actually, these are for people in the chat.
Where is Luther's on? Obviously on. Is he in Seattle?
I'm not sure, but he's in the chat. So John Root says, I have seen really tiny scraper, not much bigger than a postage stamp. What are these scrapers used for?
Have no idea. I've never seen them. Scrapers the size of a postage stamp. I know guys that make musical instruments will often create their own tools. There's small planes. I probably use small scrapers as well. Some people, I remember when I was at Anderson Ranch, there was a guy that used to use, when you look at stuff under a microscope, you have little pieces of glass. You buy these little pieces of glass that you put things in, and they would use those to scrape with. And then when they were dull, they just throw them away. They weren't very expensive at all. So whatever you need to do, you get inventive. It's easy enough to cut if you want to make I've made scrapers. I'll show you some. I don't know how many I still have laying around. But I have some scrapers that I have customized for various jobs. See if I can remember what they're for. There's the spare one out of that. There's one that I needed for a certain radius, so I just ground it. It doesn't take much to grind it. I ground it to that profile. And I have another one somewhere where I was making, I was making that shaker bench, and I wanted to smooth out the spindles on the back because they were all done, they were cut, or I created them using a spoke shave, and then to make the transition from the little flats a little bit better, I took a scraper blade and I cut out a half round, and I used that. It was a larger radius. It was a larger radius than what the spindle was, so that I could use it over the entire length, but it worked quite well. Next, Frick. Can you mount yourself on there, Jake, so I can?
Yeah, we got a lot of questions on how do you resharpen, how do you properly sharpen, how do you sharpen?
Well, I'll go through that. That'll take care of a lot of them. But what I want to show you right now, I'm going to take a bit of a break. I want to show you what we're doing. Some of you have been around, you've seen it already, but seems like the audience really likes to participate in stuff like this. So on our online workshop that you can access through our website, we started that in 2011, and we've built, I have no idea how many different pieces of furniture we've built on there, but we go through the entire process, start to finish. And starting in design for me is a model, a scale model, build it. Have I got one here? Usually do.
Skill model?
Scale model of
Usually over.
sitting in the other, I thought we had them here for some reason.
Oh, they were up here, weren't
Let me look and see. Yeah, here's one. Here's one I don't think I've shown before. So, if I had a commission, I would build a scale model first. So this was out of oak. It's all dovetailed. And this was a desk for a friend, and there were some unique things about it. Anyway, that had a fold-out lid on it. So I would build a scale model, because if you do it to scale, it looks exactly like it would if it was real, just add water. And then after the scale model, if the scale model turned out, meaning we liked it, liked the appearance, then I would build a full-size mock-up. And then once we built the full-size mock-up, that gave us a really nice, a good solid understanding of the space that this was going to take, which isn't always easy to do off a model or off a drawing. And then from there, we do our cutting list, and we figure out all the joinery, and then we go to work on it. So in this online workshop, that's what we do. We run through the whole gamut right to putting on the final finish. So that's where that is where this is being done. I want to explain to you the purpose. So it is a tool cabinet. Remind me to talk to you about our newsletter. So this is the tool cabinet. Started off with just an idea, made a model, and then we built the mock-up. Now the mock-up is made out of Baltic birch, just screwed together. We needed that because we needed to be able to space out for the tools. So it's got just about everything you would want. The idea was somebody was coming to my class, hand tool class, how could you get everything you needed in a space like that? So you've got your saws, you've got your chisels, you've got your marking gauges, your planes, your drilling apparatus, and then you have 3 drawers. And the first thing we realized with the drawers was that a drawer that size, once you've got more than about more than half of it full, you lose everything on the bottom. So we wanted to come up with a way that would utilize the space better. So we did. We put a removable. It fits a little too well. A removable tray. And realized right away that it can't be the same length. So we made those changes thanks to the mock-up. You realize that stuff before it's too late. Okay, so come over here. So this is what we're doing. It's being built out of walnut. The accent wood is aspen, so through wedge tenons. Through wedge tenons everywhere there's a T-shaped joint, meaning where you have a L-shaped joint, you've got a dovetail here and here. There's going to be these two doors going to open up. They'll all be dovetailed as well. We're working on these right now, and I found these neat little latches. I wanted something that didn't sit on the surface. Don't like that. I wanted it nice and clean, and it had to be small enough. So when you pull this out, you have your removable drawer, and they're all dovetailed. Has to fit just right. There's still a little more fitting to be done on this. Got to put the drawer stops in. The dovetails come all the way through, part of the feature. This one we just did, just finished today. And this has 3 compartments. Again, just to utilize the space better. And then the one we're working on right here that you see sitting there drying, I can take that off the clamps now. This is the tray that's going to go in this drawer. And it's going to have one divider running down this way. So it'll give you 2 long areas that you can put something like dividers or rules or whatever. So once it's done, we are going to, on our online, on this thing that we do right now, everybody's going to be able to participate, and they'll be able to donate the various tools. So hopefully we have all kinds of people getting involved, donating the tools. We'll fill it up, and then we're trying to figure out how we're going to do this, but somehow we're going to offer it for sale, and all the proceeds will go to PHP. So not sure how we're going to do that. I wanted to be able to raffle it off so everybody had an equal opportunity, but I don't think we can do that, but I don't know. I'm letting Luther figure that one out. So that's just to tell you what we're doing and keep you up to date. And if you want to join us in the online workshop, we try to get in 3 45-minute episodes each week to keep you entertained and educated. And when you join, you get access to all that. How many years of content, Jake? 12? 12 years. 12 years of content. And we used to, okay, you didn't have to take them out of the box, but I'm glad you did.
What would be in the box?
That's a good answer. And we need panel saws too. Oh, you know what? There's a cart. There's just inside there. I emptied out, I cleaned off a cart. Okay, but there's something else I was just going to show somebody. Oh, give me another question, Frick, on that. I'm watching the clock, so I know when to demonstrate.
This one's from Eric Holden.
Hi, Eric. I know Eric.
He says, what percentage of your woodworking do you use a scraper?
Very little. Very little.
Hey, like scraping period or like a scraping plane?
Scrapers come in when there are people that probably use them. There are people who use them a lot more than I do. I
use them mostly in finish.
Yeah, that's true. I use them for doing the prepping the surface in between coats of finish. Instead of sanding your lacquer down, I scrape. I don't want to I don't want to have this come off sounding wrong, but I have a level of expertise in planing. So all the woods that I work, I can get my plane to perform extremely well. So there aren't very many woods that I have to scrape. I wouldn't, like I said, I wouldn't choose a scraper over a plane if a plane would do the job. So if that makes any sense. But they're essential. You got to have them because when you get stuck, that's the only thing that can save you. Good question. Next, Rick. Please.
Jill.
Okay.
What?
I was going to say, let me show you this. So we have a newsletter that I'm going to sell you on the newsletter.
I gotta pee.
We all need to know that.
Much information.
Yeah. And our newsletter, Luther puts a lot of work into it. Every month it has a specific topic. Jake and I always shoot a video on the topic. Luther usually includes a couple of articles on the topic. And it's also how we notify you of specials, if we have seconds, anything like that. So you want to be on the newsletter. So the newsletter he asked us to do, which in years past we always seem to leave it too long, people like to be able to build wood hinge boxes for Christmas. So the challenge was, as I heard it from Luther, can you make a video that doesn't include a whole lot of extra equipment? Because I like to make my boxes using these little, I always turn this way, yeah, using these little, that jig that I made that allows you to do a large tail and a small pin, or dovetail them. Either way, that's a lot of work. So we came up with a simple butt joint. One setting using a router with an 1/8" diameter bit allowed us to do this with one setting. With one setting, you could cut the groove for your plywood bottom and top, cut your spline to reinforce your joint. And this is a cherry box. This is the video of this is on the newsletter that will come out sometime in the next week. And there it is. This is a little different. So if you're just getting into this, meaning wood hinge boxes, this is a really easy one to do because you can pass all the way through. You don't have to work about, my normal boxes are made in such a way that you have to fit the hinge in between the two end pieces. Show you what I mean? Right, so your hinge is fitting in between here and here. And it's not that difficult, but it adds a little bit of complexity to it. Whereas on this one, the hinge runs the full length. It's a little bit easier to do. So there's a couple of them. There's the one I did out of walnut. And when I did this one, I instantly thought, these sides are just too thick. So we cut it down, and then I also changed the spacing on the lid. Here's the first one I did. I changed the thickness of the material, and this doesn't look bad, but I thought it was just a little bit heavy, so on the next one I made it a little bit smaller. And we give you all the little tips on getting it just right, so it turns out to be a great gift. So that's on the current newsletter that'll be out shortly. You can sign up for it on any of our pages on our website, RobCosman.com. Now, questions? How are we going to get a question if Frick's not here? Oh, if you're a wounded vet that has been to our program, so we have had 24 Purple Heart classes, about to get number 25 in. If you are one of the wounded vets that have been to one of those classes, we would love to have, and you're on tonight, please give us a shout out. Ken will watch for it and tell me, and then I'll give you that shout out. So you just in the chat have to put @Ken. Is that how we do it? @Ken Anthony? @Ken Anthony, and then tell us your name and which class you're in. Frick, we're waiting on questions. Angie's probably watching tonight. So Angie, who's right here, Angie and her sister Lynn package up all of our t-shirts, Purple Heart t-shirts. There she is, her smiling face.
She's been working hard to get so many people out.
Oh yes, that's right. That is right. Vacation, these guys are all taking vacations. Hi Ange. Hi Lynn. Who else we saying hello to tonight? Am I forgetting anybody? Ken's here, Moose is here. He's the official saw holder tonight. Moose, the index finger goes out along the front. The index finger comes out of the hole and goes up along the side.
Not when I'm about to whack someone with it.
Next question, Frick.
Next question comes from Jill Clarkson.
Joe or Jill?
Jill,
Jill. Hi, Jill.
can you explain what steps you go through when the wood is not cooperating to finally get reaching for your scraper?
Say that again, please.
What steps do you go through before you will reach for your scraper?
You mean what failure would I endure before I start scraping?
Sure.
Yeah, it kind of sounds like
Okay.
that, yeah.
So if I'm trying to plane the surface of a board, and there's areas that just will not respond, meaning they tear no matter what you do. Increase the pitch, meaning you've gone from a 45-degree cut
So
to a
she
55.
wants to know what steps, list
Oh,
the-
what
would
I'm
you
listing.
yeah.
Right, okay. So I'm trying to plane a piece of highly figured wood. Blade is perfectly sharp. That always has to be. That's the underlying must.
call that
must
number
have.
one.
Number one. Number two, I'm going to close the throat on my plane. It's the easiest one to do. And when I say close the throat, I'll see if I can show you and give you an example. So this is a block plane, same principle. So block plane has a sliding toe plate, this thing. So when you loosen that thumb screw and you manipulate this, see how it moves that throat? I'm going to put a light colored background behind it. So that's not light enough. Yeah, piece of.
Keep it out here.
So I would. Okay, can you see how tight that throat is? Can you see it?
Looks like it's. Move this. It looks like it's closed on one side.
No, it's not. Let me see. I've never done this, but I'm going to see if I can get a piece of paper in there.
Why don't you use your shims?
Well, because then it's metal on my steel blade. What would I have to do to get a piece of paper around here?
Use your shims.
I don't want to use a shim. I don't want to stick a metal shim in there. I know somewhere in my shop I have a piece of paper. What? Here. I got a piece right here. So this is a.
And you slide it down. Slide it down.
So I can't get a piece of paper in there, so it's not 4 thou. So it's really thin.
But
And
it should be.
It should be. I mean, I tell people, I said, I want that gap to be just barely enough for the shaving to come out. Obviously, that's going to limit your exposure, meaning you can't have your blade way out, which, by the way, should probably have been step number 2. So step number 1 was sharpen the blade and make sure it's as sharp as you know how to get it. And that may not be enough, actually. I don't know how you can measure sharp if you don't already have the ability to sharpen. That's a tough one. That's chicken and an egg. I'm just looking for a piece of wood that I can experiment with. If I'm being too loud, Moose, you let me know.
Wood everywhere. And not a stick to demonstrate.
Yeah. All right. I just sharpened this block plane, so it should still work. So my first step is going to be really sharp blade. And that's really sharp. My next step, if I'm experiencing tear out, is I'm going to reduce the cut, meaning I'm going to pull my blade in and take a much lighter pass. I think I can go better than that. Now, the reason we do that is it's exerting much less pressure on the wood fiber and has a tendency and has a less of a tendency to lift and tear. And if that still doesn't work, then I'm going to go in and I'm going to close that throat down. And that's where if you're using a bedrock style plane, you've got to go in and move your frog. If you're using a block plane, you can just do that, close the toe plate. If that doesn't work, then I'm going to switch to what's called a high angle frog. So I usually have one stored here somewhere.
High angle blade.
High angle block. What did I say?
Frog.
Well, yeah, either or.
Right.
If you've got a Lee Nelson, you could be just switch out the frog. That's a high angle right there. It's not a very good example. I must have a better one than that. Let me see if I can pull one out of here. Come on. Oh, there's that other example I was going to show you. We're talking about the steel. So when I was trying to flatten the back of this blade, this is the one that Ivar made me. It was so hard. I ended up taking a grinder and grinding away this material just to lessen the amount of surface area I had to work. That was before the ruler trick. But it was hard. Okay, I don't have one there. See if there's one sitting in here. No, no, no. It's either going to be a wood
There's one
river.
that says HA on it. That's not it.
No. Oh, my tricky little compartments. Try one more. Why come I don't have any blades in these planes?
They're on your cabinet.
Here's the other. See this? This is the problem with the really hard blade. You see that big chunk out of there? That's what tends to happen. Did you find one?
No.
What did I do? Did I get rid of that little thing that I used to have the blades in?
Yeah.
Remember?
Yeah. That's why they're in there.
I don't have it anymore. Well, I can't show you that part. But before I forget what we were talking about, let me go back to it. Changing the pitch means elevating the blade. So as I mentioned, if you had a Lee Nielsen, you would take that whole frog assembly out, take all this out, and this piece right here, the frog, you can buy a 50 degree, this one's 45, which is going to go up 5 degrees. You can buy a 55 degree, which is up like this. You can achieve the same results by going in and putting a 20 degree back bevel on the backside of your plane. So right now, when that blade sits in this plane on this frog, it's cutting the wood at 45 degrees. The angle that we're looking at is this angle right here, the back of the blade to the wood. If I go in and I come up here about a millimeter and a half, and I tip that like this so that I put a 20 degree bevel down like this. Now when you put that blade on that 45 degree frog, you want to factor in what is the angle that the blade is meeting the wood. Well, it's no longer 45 because of that 20 degree slope. It's now 65 degrees. And it does miracles for dealing with figured wood. However, it is really a hard push. It's a noticeably more difficult push through the wood, which even with a sharp blade, that's the reason why we don't leave that type of an angle in our plane in normal use. And it doesn't work really well in softwoods. So those are the 4 things: sharpness, the amount of blade exposed, closing the throat, and increasing the pitch. And if none of that works, then you go to a scraper. Oh, I just want to show you this, because since we've last talked. So Jake's grip is now available. And we have a video on there, shows you exactly how to prep your plane to get that 1/4 inch hole. And it works beautifully. We've sold, how many?
Oh, well over 100 now.
Yeah. Made out of cast aluminum. Really easy to use. And if you're a shooting board aficionado, you will have to have one of these. Otherwise, you'll have a raw hand for as long as you're using a shooting board. Next frick. Did they catch you off guard?
Kind of. Will Missile in the chat.
Will?
Yeah, he says Blue Spruce just came out with seriously thick scraper blades. What do you think about them compared to your scraper blades?
Haven't seen them. Haven't seen them, and I mean, we use both, right? The scraper blade in this plane is 3/16 of an inch thick. That's really thick. But for a hand scraper blade, you really want that little bit of flex in there to help it bite, and it also allows it to flare too. So, you don't have to deal with
Corners.
You don't have to deal with scraper tracks. So when you make that cut, you can end up with a fairly wide shaving, but it just peters off to nothing or feathers off to nothing on both sides, all because you can flex it a little bit. So don't know, can't comment on that, haven't seen it, but not to say that there isn't room for something new. Next, Frick.
William says, I don't understand why you recommend using your chisel back to create a burr when almost everyone else uses a round tool for this. What gives?
Well, let me go through and do it. Are we at that point?
Yeah,
Let me
pretty
show you
much.
what we're going to give away first. So if you're a first responder and you're signing up, depending on how many people we have, this is what we make in our shop. I'm coming back to that question, by the way.
Luther has 2 draws on the go too. The
Yeah.
first responder one and the regular one.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So in our shop, we make, Jake, are you with me?
Yeah.
We make, I'll give them in the order that we started them. This is our dovetail saw that we've become fairly well known for. It's had some evolution. This is our joinery crosscut saw, 15 point. That one's a 2215. If you're unfamiliar with our saws, I'll tell you real quick. So the first 2 inches have 22 teeth per inch with a negative cutting angle, makes it really easy to start. And then the balance of the saw is 15 teeth per inch with a 0 degree cutting angle. This is a 15 point joinery crosscut, cuts very smooth, only 2 thou set per side. Same thing on the dovetail saw. This is our medium tenon. Wanted a tenon saw that was just a little bit lighter and easier to use for people that are just doing this very part-time.
I thought we were going in order of when they came out.
Yeah?
Well,
That was-
this came out before the medium 10.
Oh, you're right. Yes, right you are. So this was our first tenon saw, and it's a beast. If you're not used to doing it, it's a big saw. It's got lots of capacity, but it also requires a well-controlled wrist. So in response to people just having a hard time handling a saw that big, but if you need the capacity, you need the capacity. We developed this saw. And this one is a little less. I think you've got two inch depth of cut, which will cover most of your tenons that you're going to be cutting
And the tooth
in furniture.
The tooth cut angle is
Yeah,
relaxed.
it's 12 teeth per inch, 22 up here to start. And we back these off a little bit too, about, I can't
think it's
remember,
5.
5 degrees. Just makes it a little less grabby. And then we came out with our 13 point cross cut. So this is one that you would tend to use on a bench hook, not a bench hook, but
Yeah,
on a bench hook,
not a shooting.
not a shooting board. You think I'd know what I'm talking about, but sometimes I don't. And then we came out with, as inspired by John Robichaux's dad, we came out with this little saw. We call it the Len Robichaud 3/4 saw. Len Robichaud was the father of a good friend of mine who fought in World War II all the way through, came home, and he'd given his son a cutest little dovetail saw, and I always wanted to make one like that. I wanted this because in cutting dovetails in small boxes, my regular dovetail saw would make the wood bend. So this one has 15 thou blade as opposed to 20 on the regular dovetail. Has little tiny 22 teeth per inch from one end to the other, but the first 1.5 inches, we relax that cutting face. So you get that same function that you get with the dovetail saw in that it's easier to start with that first little bit. And then as a mate to that, we have a small joinery crosscut, 22 teeth per inch, which cuts like silk. And just recently, Ian and I have been working on our panel saws, crosscut and rip, 7-point rip and a 9-point crosscut. And they're nicely balanced and they do a wonderful job. Just sail through the wood. Compete with a table saw. There you go. All right, let's go through. Is there anything pending, Frick, or can I go ahead and do a scraper blade?
Go ahead. I got Luther's getting some more questions for after.
Okay.
Maybe some will come up from this demonstration.
We've
All
got
right.
Frick's go ahead, so let's do it.
Yeah.
You had something you
Proceed.
wanna come back to just before you started that.
Oh yeah, so the guy asked the question, why do I use a chisel instead of a burnisher? So that's gonna get answered in this process. Ken, can you go grab me a new heavy scraper blade, one of the ones that we now grind? These,
already ground?
yeah, these ones aren't. So, no, these ones aren't. So the first thing we do for you when you get these, this is a 35 thou thick scraper blade. We now have Chris Davenport, who is an engineer at RPC, and Chris goes through and he grinds these for us so that it is nice and straight, and it takes a lot of work away. You don't have to go in there and dress it up. You've got to go in there and get rid of the grind marks, but it's already straight. And if it's not straight, then you've got a lot of work to do on a stone or with a file to get it straight. You can't, if I put an edge like that that is not straight down on a really fine stone like a 16,000 to get that final finish, I may only be touching in a couple of spots. And if I had to try to straighten it that way, that stone just is way too fine and it'll take way too long. Even down in the coarse stones, it's going to take longer than I want. Plus, I don't know if you can tell, but the way they're cut out, there's a bit of a radius there. So you've got to get down below that as well. By having Chris grind them for us, now that step is eliminated and we can go right from there to the 1,000. So not all those are right.
None of those are bad.
Yeah, I know. You know what? I got one right here. He's going to come back after having searched. So this is the thin one. I don't want that. I want the thick one right here. So here it is. It's got a ground edge on it. Now I'd like to have a seat just because of how much time I'm going to be sitting here. Yeah.
I got about it anyway.
Do you? You go eat and have some dinner. You want to tell them about your injury? No. Moose is on the injured list.
That's how come I should have been listening.
Got run over by a train on the ice. Train's name happened to be Jack. All right, Ken, thank you. I just found one. Because you didn't? Oh, you did? So Ken makes two tools that we use. I'm going to show you how they're used. This is made out of torrefied wood. The reason we use torrefied wood is A, it's not going to wear out my stone, and B, it doesn't get affected by moisture. So I've got my stone nice and flat. I'll go in here and lubricate it. I'm going to work on the bottom. You could do all four edges. I'm just going to do the one. So what we want to do first is we want to get this nice and clean. And if you were to look under some magnification, you would see grinding marks that Chris left on there. So I need to have this held perpendicular to the stone. So by having this piece of wood on here, and you'll notice that when I'm doing this, I'm turning with my wrist like this so that if I stay in one spot, I'm going to wear my stone out. But if I swing this way as I'm moving forward and back, it spreads the wear out over the stone. And I'm just squeezing it against this block. You can shout out questions if you have them, Frick. I can handle it while I'm doing this. Frick?
He said he doesn't want to interrupt you.
Yeah. How's the audience?
We are at 338.
How much?
338.
Ken, do you have any vets to shout out to?
Yeah.
Who?
He doesn't have a microphone.
Kyle,
You need a mic?
Carl Perel is here.
You need a mic.
Lend me yours.
Kyle Parallel.
you can get last name and Finley from 2000.
It is. It's him.
It's him. Kyle will be here in a week or less, week from today. Kyle, we're sending you over a little hurricane, whatever's left of it. By the way, we had Hurricane Lee blow through today. He didn't really do too much.
Didn't live up to the hype.
Thankfully.
Yeah. Why, has the media ever hyped up something and not delivered before? Is this the first?
Not that I can think of.
Jim Eakin's on, June 22
Jim.
class.
Jim hasn't been on in a while.
Al's on, Al McNeil. He has a ruptured eardrum, so
Yes.
he said to speak up so you can hear him. He can hear you. I mean.
Al works here. Jim has a golden eye. Coolest thing I ever saw.
You can flip that stone around?
Not yet. Why?
Or,
I'm
Jack's
using-
on
I'm
too.
using- Jeffrey
Jeffy.
O'Connor.
Jeffy.
Ahmed's on.
Hey, Jeff. Ahmed. Hamid.
Mead. Michael Del
Delboy.
Boy.
Michael.
Ray
How are
Dorr.
ya?
Ray Dorr.
Ray Dorr. Cool Ray from down there in Louisiana. Driving his mule. I had a chat with Pete Ambrose this week. Hadn't talked to him in a while. So Ray and Pete were in the same class. Both are Vietnam vets. And Ray has some French-Canadian, Acadian ancestry. So I guess we're brothers, Ray, of some sort. I'm just going to grab my magnifier so I can see this a little bit better. So what I'm looking for is a nice uniform polish. It's not going to be very high, but it should be uniform, meaning it's the same color, and that's about all you can look for at this stage. It's just going to be the same color of gray. I'm going to give that another few seconds. I lied. It might be a minute. I'm going to go in there and reflatten. I'm using the more expensive of the sharpening systems that we promote, and it is the Shapton. So the idea of doing this is just like the cutting edge on a plane, which consists of two surfaces. Your cutting edge can only be as good as the lesser of the two surfaces. So you have to polish the back of your blade. You have to polish the leading edge of the bevel on your blade. Well, when you're preparing a scraper, if you do the edge and not the face, or to do the face and not the edge, then your edge can only be as good as the lesser of those two. Now, let's take a quick look at this and see how it, I don't know whether you can get in there and see it, Jake. Kevin Burris on tonight?
I haven't seen him.
Okay, now, I'm gonna go from, you could take an intermediate step here, and you could jump up to, you could go to a 6,000 or an 8,000. I'm gonna go right to a 16, simply because the surface area is relatively small. It's nice and flat, so I'm not having to do any shaping of the edge. I'm just polishing. I'm essentially getting rid of the 1,000 grit scratches that this stone put on it, replacing them with 16,000 grit. This one, when we're done, will shine. It'll look like a mirror. Same idea, swing high, swing low, swing side to side, so that you're evening out your wear on the stone. Is Jeff making Kim watch? We don't know.
She's quiet if she is.
She's very quiet. You can also use a little bit of dish soap if you want, just to lubricate this, but anything, Frick? Really? No more questions?
I have to wait till the percent. Keep fixing it.
Kim is on.
Kim is on? Hey, Kim. Kim was responsible, so we, to solve the problem with where we keep our vets, there was a hotel that was helping us, but the help was not turning out to be as what we were looking for. So we decided we had to keep them under the same roof. So we turned we've turned 2, and we've got 2 more to go. Small businesses that we rented space to, we turned them into rooms. And we rent them out as Airbnbs when we're not using them for the class, because we only use them for the class 6 weeks of the year. And we needed a name. And Kim came up with the name, Heart of the Bay. We live in Grand Bay, and it's the purple. Huh?
There are 2 Kims here you were talking about.
Oh, and my wife is on there as well?
No.
Oh, this is Kim O'Connor, Jeff's wife. And anyway, the Purple Heart Project and Grand Bay, Heart of the Bay, and I thought it was ideal. So that's what it's called. Big thank you to Kim.
Jeff,
And she puts up with Jeff. Another big thank you to
Jeff
Kim.
said the ball and chain is with me.
Yeah, I won't touch that. Pick your battles carefully. Let's see if I can't speed this up a little bit. Check it. I want this to shine. Can you pick up that yet, Jake? That's, huh? Can you? Looks good?
Looks shiny.
Shiny? That's what we want. I'm just before I leave it, I'm gonna come in here, flatten my stone, and give it another 30 seconds. A little more moisture just to keep the friction at bay. Now, by the way, when I'm doing this, I'm pushing down with my hand. I'm squeezing with my fingers and my thumb to keep it tight to this block so that we keep it square. If you try doing this freehand, you're not going to get as good an edge as you could. Okay, so we're done with that one. Now what we need to do is the second half. The second half is going to be that area right there, and it's got 2 sides, so you could do them both. I'm only going to do one right now just for the sake of time. So here's the problem. If you've ever watched anybody, or read anything, I should say, on how to prepare these, they'll often show pictures or demonstrate laying the blade flat on the stone, like so, with a bunch of fingers here and trying to do that. Well, there's just no way that that is going to work as well as you would want. So instead, what we decided to do, or what we developed, was another block of this, what is it? Torrified. 3 powerful magnets in there. And the block is short by about 1/4 of an inch of the width. I'm going to take my ruler. This is the steel rule that we use for sharpening. Set it on there like so. And set this down. Now, this is elevated. And when I apply pressure to this block, the pressure ends right there. It's going to cause that last little bit of the scraper to bend, so that instead of polishing, well, obviously we want to get away from polishing all this, which is wasted space. We just want a little strip right there. But instead of having it put an angle on there, not that that would be terrible, this is going to allow it to bend, and it's going to be more or less polishing and keeping that last little bit parallel to this, but only because we've bent it that little bit by applying pressure up here on the top. Now, I don't do too much lateral movement here. I do some, so I'm not working in the exact same spot the whole time. So I'm probably moving anywhere from the outside edge of the stone to inside by about 3/8 of an inch. So as I'm pushing forward and back, I'm pushing down with a fair bit of pressure, concentrating along this edge to cause that steel scraper to bend. Now this is going to be hard on the stone, so after a minute or so, I'll flip that around, put the steel rule over on this side. How are the, can you tell how many people have signed up for the first responders draw, Frick?
Yep, I can. We currently have 22.
22?
Pretty good odds.
All right, now I want to have a look at this and see what we're getting. So you can see that that gray area. For some reason it's not complete down there, but I'm not going to worry about that too much. I'll look at it under some magnification and see what I can see. Yeah, it's skipping an area right there for some reason. Not sure why. I'll give it another.
First, see if you can find some questions.
Make some up. So Frick has a new job. What are you now, Frick?
Well, you mean my full-time job?
Well, the job you don't like that you would rather not have to do that instead of doing this.
Well, it's a temporary gig. I was the payroll and human resources guy for the local Costco,
Costico?
and I've been on parental leave actually for the last 7 months.
How's that been going?
Well, it was going.
First
It was going great.
life.
Anyway, I got. Currently, I'm doing a temporary position with the Costco website, Costco.ca. So it's the Canadian website. So I'll be doing that until January, and then I'll go back to my HR.
Are you able to offer any discounts to our viewers?
No, I don't even get a discount myself. Except for my free membership and good benefits and stuff, but no discount on product, unfortunately.
He doesn't get a discount with us either.
That's true.
We give them sharp chisels for free. We stopped that. I'm about to switch here. Got to work this. This is the one time you're going to apply a fair bit of pressure, whereas normally we're not. Let's have a look at that. Okay, that's uniform. We actually picked up that little spot right there where we weren't getting. Now we got to do the same thing. And I'll stress again, you could put another in-between stone in here. Have I got one close by? There's an 8,000.
Yeah, it's flat.
It is. It's cracked up too. There's a 4,000. I'm going to go with a 4. Is that flattened?
Yeah.
So we'll see if our theory speeds it up a little by going to an intermediate stone. Did Moose leave? Couldn't stand the excitement.
Tried Frick discount on Costco's website, it didn't work.
What's that?
Jeff said, I tried the frickin' discount code on Costco's website.
Frickin' good discount.
Didn't work.
What a surprise.
Do you have Hone right in that water right now?
No, because I'm just using straight Shaptons. Okay. Now we'll go 16. Take a quick look.
We've hit 400 viewers.
Yeah, wait. Any idea how donations are doing? Santa Claus on?
I haven't seen him
Haven't
yet.
seen him either.
Any more vets?
Nope.
Come on. Keeps catching on me.
Yeah, this is a one-time process,
Yeah, the hard part is, I mean, when I go back and resharpen, I do a little bit of this, but it doesn't take anywhere near the amount of time that the initial does. This is just like doing a chisel for the first time, or a plain blade. All right. Let's go use it. Now, I stopped short with Frank's permission of doing this side. So you can see the polish on there and on there. Now, I've got a little device that I came up with, but this works on my vise. So I want
It
to,
would work on a Showbird.
yeah. The higher, so this one's 1 1/8 inch, this one's 1 5/16 inch. So it's just meaning that it's going to attack, or it's going to create, just a second now, I'm putting that in there like this. So I need it like that. Set that in there like that. So that's keeping the top edge of the blade parallel to the bench top. Now, I've got my,
Wait, we're going to talk about round versus...
yeah, I'm going to do it first. I've got my chisel that has had the back's already been polished. I'm going to grab a little bit of camellia oil. Have I got any? Here. I'll use 3-in-1. I'm just going to put a little drop of, what would Luther call this?
3-in-1 all.
All on the back of there. Don't need a lot. Now, so you can see the angle that's creating. So the higher up, in other words, if I went to 1 1/8 inch, if I went to 1 5/16 inch, I made 2 more of these. The higher up I brought this, the more aggressive of an edge I'd be putting on it. So with it sitting like that, I'm just going, and I put the tape on the edge of the chisel just so I'd have something to hold on to. I wouldn't cut myself live on TV.
That would be embarrassing.
Very. And then fling the blood all over. So do that until you can feel a bit of a burr. I can feel a bit of a burr all the way. Now, why do I like this? Well, first of all, a round one, in my mind, a round one means you're putting pressure in a very small spot. And it would be easy if your downward pressure wasn't even, it would be easy to make little dents in there. Whereas on this, I've got a 1/2 inch of steel surface that's spreading out the pressure. In my mind, that's going to do a better job. I could be wrong, but I'm sticking with it. That's the reason why I prefer the chisel, and I've already done the work of prepping the chisel for the purpose of using the chisel. So get double duty out of it. Now, let's go here and pick a piece of wood that we haven't used in a while. This little corner of my shop is worth a lot of money.
It was a Kingwood.
Huh?
It was Kingwood.
Where?
That.
I've used Kingwood. Let's try a piece of Macassar ebony. No? Cocobolo?
No, Genco. When have you? I don't remember ever seeing you do Kingwood scraping.
Well, you just have a bad memory. I'll do both. So I've got a piece of Kingwood, which is hard, and I've got a piece of Macassar ebony, which is also hard. Now this piece of Kingwood is actually going to be good to demonstrate on because it's got a couple of bumps in there from the thickness planer. And I'm going to angle that scraper blade to counteract that. Where did I set it down? Right here.
Frank Luther's been texting you questions.
Yeah, he gave me 2, and they're not related to what he's doing right now.
Okay.
I'll ask them after.
So if I held it like this, I'd hit that bump, and I would just make the bump worse. Whereas if I hold it on a bit of an angle, it gives me a little bit of sole to work with. So there's what you're pulling off. It just really delicate shavings. They would almost just disintegrate in your hand if you squeeze them, and that'll give you a really nice surface. A really nice surface. I'll do this piece of Macassar as well. And there's some Macassar ebony. Nice finish. Okay. Now, bring the questions on. I would do that, by the way, for my scraper plane, the number 80. Same thing. What do we got? You gonna give me a question?
Sure. This one is from Fama in the chat. Can you show the right position of putting the scraper blade in a Stanley 80?
The right position?
Now this is
Okay.
a reiteration of the question from Luther, so it might not be,
But, well,
makes sense.
they just want to know how to load it.
Yep.
So, with your sharpened blade, and there's several companies that make an 80. Well, I shouldn't say several, but I can think of, Stanley makes it, and Kunz, K-U-N-Z, out of Germany make one, if they're still around. So you can see if you look real close, there's some crud on there, but this blade has a back bevel on it, a little highly polished back bevel, and an edge. There's not much left to that edge, so let's see if we can't.
Is this going to be the resharpening process?
Well, this one actually has a bevel on it. This is not square, so this one has an angle on there. So
That's a 4,000 BT.
this one is.
Yeah.
It's okay. Find that angle. Yeah. It's not going to sit there. Now, you have to do this like this or else it'll screech on you if you try to hold it on the, if you try to hold it any other way, it'll vibrate really bad. And I do a secondary and a tertiary on this one as well. So hold it up a little bit higher than you did on the previous. And then go in. I can't think of the last time I used this tool. Now you don't need to put a burr on this. You could use that edge just like it is. In fact, let's try it without doing anything other than what we just did. So you want your bevel facing, as I hold the tool, with the way the numbers are, it's going to go, remember it's cutting in a negative angle, unlike a plane blade, which would be like this, it's going to be like that. So I'm going to go in that direction. So the bevel's got to be back here. You want to sit it on a flat surface. And I would do the work to flatten the sole on this. Set that in there. Down on the wood. Now I'm just going to snug these up. I want to take all the pressure off of this thumb screw on the back side. Now I'm tightening these up at the same time I'm pushing down on the blade a little bit so that it stays flush with the bottom. I don't think that one will fit. And tighten up those two screws. You can wax the sole. I'm going to put just a little bit of pressure. You don't have a whole lot of sole to start the cut, or I should say a whole lot of reference surface. Is it? Where's it cutting on one side?
Right on the far left.
Now, let me go back and adjust that. Where's my screwdriver that I was just using?
Okay.
No, it's too thick. It won't fit. That's the one I need. Oh, you know what? I didn't back that pressure off. Come out the middle. Too much blade.
It's still coming out on that left side.
Is it? I thought it was in the middle. Although I didn't look. Yeah, I can see right there. Where's that little brass hammer? More cowbell? And this stuff is hard. Yeah, hopefully that answers your question. Next, Rick.
Alfred Borg.
What's his name?
Alfred Borg.
Alfred?
Yeah, he's on with us every time. Big supporter. Is a thicker scraper better than a thin scraper?
No. We sell two. We sell what's the 20 and a 35?
Yeah, 20.
One's just going to allow it to flex a little more. So if I was working a surface that wasn't flat, I would take the thinner one, and I can mold it to fit. But my preference would be the 35 thou. You can still bend that, but it just seems like it has a little more meat to it. Next, Rick.
Scott Linz wants to know what are the best
Hey,
woods
Scott.
to scrape and which one should you stay away from?
Well, trying to scrape cedars, pines, any of the softer woods, you're not going to get a very good surface because the wood will actually compress. So the harder the wood, the better it's going to scrape. So these woods scrape well, but you can scrape maple too, walnut, cherry. Just got to stay away from the really soft ones. You find it won't work very well. Next, Rick.
This is from ST.
ST.
It's the name. It's their name in the chat. The AccuBurr tool has 3 slots, 5, 10, and 15 degrees. Which one should I use for different types of
So
scraping?
I didn't hit that's the first part.
The AccuBurr.
AccuBurr, I'm
tool.
not familiar with the tool.
Okay, well, it has 3 slots, 5, 10, and 15 degrees. Which one should I use for different types of scraping? So
Oh.
it must be a jig.
So 5, 10, so what we're talking about is there's your burnisher sitting on top of your scraper. So 5, 10, 15. The 15 is going to give you a more aggressive hook. So I'll tell it to you this way. If I was doing scraping the finish, lacquer in between coats, I would go with the 5. I think your 5, I don't know why, I would leave it at that. I mean, the more burr you put out there, the weaker it's going to be. It's not going to last as long. But play around with it. The best way to do it is to actually try it and see if one performs better than another. But I don't really change around very much. I have those 4 different settings, but I probably use the smaller one most. That being and I can't tell you what that translates into in degrees, but it's not much. When it's sitting on there. Well, I showed you, it's probably sitting on there about like that. Would that be 5 degrees? Probably. Next, Rick.
Jamie Fago and a lot of other people in the chat want you to demonstrate sharpening a curved one.
Ugh,
Don't even have
I don't even have a curved one. I don't have a curved one.
that profile one.
They just want to know if the process is the same.
I only did it one time when I was using it for something, and it's going to be a lot more work. But if I was going to do it, so actually I do have this one, so that would count. So that's going to be a little bit tougher because you're trying to hold it like this in order to prep that edge. Wear your stone out. I don't know how precise you're going to be, but you'd have to go in there. I've actually got to go in and clean this up. I wonder if I could use this. Yeah, I could. Use my... Do we have a name for this one, Ken? We should name these things.
Yeah.
So I don't know if you can see what I'm doing, but I'm just using this as a means of holding this 90 degrees to the stone.
Hey,
So not only is this our...
tedious?
What?
Tedious?
Tedious? Oh, yeah. And I'm trying not to work on the same spot. Getting there, but you can see a dull spot in the middle. So you just have to keep doing that. And then you could easily transition from your 1,000 grit stone over to doing your 16,000. Now you're not going to be able to do the ruler trick. So on this one, you're going to have to do it the old-fashioned way. I would prefer to, rather than finger pressure, I would like to put something that I could distribute the pressure that would actually wouldn't be bothered by water. I'm thinking a piece of rubber or
Why
something.
couldn't you just put that on there? Like this?
Yeah, it could, just as a matter of holding it. No, it's fairly rough, so I have to start over here.
Needs more moisture.
So we would do that until we got rid of all the scratches right out on the edge. Then you're going to switch over. You're going to polish on the 16,000. It's going to take a lot more work than that, but I don't want to sit through that whole thing again. You can see where it's starting to polish in a few spots. And then putting a burr on. Well, you don't need to, but you want to make it a little more aggressive. And you can do it. I mean, I just put it in there like so. Where's my chisel? And you're just going to have to do this a little bit by feel. It's getting a burr. Now, I don't really want to make any deep holes in that. Obviously, you would have that, you would have done this to match.
Another profile.
Did I just put the burr on that side? Did you notice?
I didn't know.
I think that chisel would definitely be easier to work than trying to do that with a round one. I'm going to grab a piece of maple and see what we can do with that. So this is a piece of bird's eye. But I wouldn't be using this to create a hollow in there, but if I had a round shape, I could go in and use that to clean it up. Yeah, the nice thing about that is you can actually make the scraper fit the profile that you want. It's nothing to grind that. If you had a CBN wheel, you could cut that stuff really fast and not have to worry about burning it. Next Frick.
Buddy Nunez,
Hey, buddy.
can I use an old saw blade to make a scraper?
You can if you want to. They're not very expensive, so I wouldn't go through too much grinding and cutting in order to save $15 on a scraper, but you can. Don't want it to be pitted. Next, Rick.
Why are you not using the 1,000 grit diamond stone with the scrapers?
Well, good question. I like the precision of the Shaptons when I do the scrapers, because you're doing an edge. Measure and tape? No. I'm preparing the edge of a 6-inch steel blade, right? So you really need to have a flat stone in order for this to work well. And the Shapton lapping plate is flatter than the steel diamond plate. So the chances are that putting this on a 1,000 grit Shapton that you've flattened with their lapping plate, you're going to be making contact over the entire length of that. So I like the precision provided by that when it comes to doing the scraper edges over the diamond plate. Diamond plate is fine for planes, chisels, but on the scraper you'll notice a difference. I think it's worth it. Not that you can't do it, but it's easier and faster with the Shapton. But then you got to spend, what's the Shapton? Well, just dropped in price. Yeah, Shapton just lowered the prices on everything. How much did it go down?
10 months.
How much did the 150 go down? Or the 1,500? 16,000. How about trying that?
20 bucks.
20 from 150 to 130. So on a whole set, that probably saved you $100 on all the different pieces. Next, Rick.
This one's from Adam Smart.
Hey, Adam.
How
Where is
long do
he?
your torrified tools last?
How long?
Yeah.
Well, I don't know what's going to. The only one that's going to wear. I mean, you are rubbing that on an abrasive, but if it, I mean, it's going to be a long time wearing any significant wear. And if it does go out, every once in a while I check it. Every once in a while I'll put the square on it and check it, and if I need to, I'll just take it over to the shooting board. Yeah, that could use a little dressing. Take it over to the shooting board and just give it a quick shot, get it back to being square with this side again, and away you go. Like I said, the primary reason is this stuff doesn't get distorted, doesn't absorb water like a regular piece of wood does, and it's wood on that stone as opposed to using a piece of metal, which would be wearing out my stone at the same time. So it just made sense. Next, Rick.
Jamie Ledbetter.
Hey, Jamie, I remember
Does your
that name.
scraper pouch serve any other purpose than just a storage space?
Is that anti-rust, Jake? It isn't, is it?
What's that?
Storage pouch?
No, just storage.
It's a nice way of keeping them and keeping the edges from getting, if it's like me, that stuff ends up all going in a drawer and getting beat up. So this provides you with some protection for it. And it's easier to spot. Now I know where it is. But no anti-corrosion. We've got a piece of, that piece of paper is anti-corrosion, whatever it's called. I don't know where it came from either, but it worked well. Next, Rick.
John Lotikin.
Hi, John.
Why did you put oil on the edge before turning the burr?
Well, it just doesn't squeal. Just lets it move a little bit easier. It doesn't, steel on steel, sometimes it wants to bite, and the oil just makes it work a lot smoother.
Karu Seo. How do you DIY a
can't try that
special
one.
profile scraper? What do you use to grind the metal to the profile?
Well, any grinding we do in here, we use a CBN wheel. So a CBN wheel is a steel wheel, heavy steel wheel. CBN stands for carbon boron, cubic boron nitrate, nitrid, N-I-T-R-A-D, nitrid. Got that wrong. Which, industrial diamond, think of that. And the big advantage of it is it cuts extremely fast. It doesn't wear. Unlike a regular stone that will wear rather quickly, that doesn't. And it cuts, because it cuts fast, it cuts cool, so you're not going to be nearly as likely to burn. Now, you can only do outside profiles with a flat wheel. So if you're going to do anything, any kind of a hollow, you're going to have to do it with a file. Next, Rick.
Why use a scraper instead of sandpaper?
Really?
Luther sent it over.
Luther would.
It might be his question.
Oh, Luther's question. If you're Luther, use sandpaper. I've never gone home at night and coughed up one of these. If you sand, it's in your nose. I'm anti-mask. Do not want to wear a mask. So no dust. Yeah, it's, where's that? Well, here, let me show you this. So we did a video recently on YouTube on, what was the topic, Jake? I can't remember.
Oh, the sharpening of the real world.
So I don't know if you can pick it up or not. The piece on my right was hand planed. The piece on my left was sanded to 240 grit. And
That's nice.
you can see the difference. So that's just on the raw wood. There's no finish on it. That's how much it stands out, just to make sure it's not a matter of me holding it a different way. So that's why. If you want to really bring out if you really want to bring out the, what would the word be? The luster?
Natural luster.
The natural luster in a piece of wood, finish it right off of the plane or the scraper as opposed to sanding. If you magnify a sanded surface, regardless of what grit it is, you've got a whole bunch of little carpet fibers. Reminds me of a shag carpet in my first university apartment. Had 9 hairs to the inch. And that's what it looks like under magnification. Whereas a plain blade that's ground to 16,000 is severing those fibers. And it gives it depth. That's the biggest difference. It gives it depth. Ooh, it's nice. Well, how many prizes have we given away tonight?
I haven't heard.
How many? What's our audience? How big have we?
397.
400. How many people? How many first responders? I only mentioned that once. I should. If you're a first responder, whether you're retired, active duty, that's fire, police, ambulance. Fire, police, and ambulance, right?
Fire.
Yeah, police and ambulance.
Paramedic.
Then to honor you, having 9/11 just passed and the sacrifice that so many of those first responders made, actually they do it every day, we are giving away some saws tonight just for you guys. So there's 2 draws. There's a draw where we give away a prize for every $1,000 that's donated towards the Purple Heart Project. And then this is a separate one where we're going to give away some prizes just for first responders to apply. We probably ought to do that now because it's 10-2.
All right.
As
since
soon as you get a number from Luther so we know how many prizes we're giving away.
All right, we got one more question.
And can you tell me how many first responders have registered?
23.
Still only 23?
Well, 23 out of.
We should have had advertised this on our. If you here's something. If you're watching right now and you know a first responder that's deserving of our admiration and thanks, call him up right now and get him to. And he was a woodworker. Get him on, and have him register. I'll give you 5 minutes. Go. Next, Frick.
All right, last question from Bill Simmons. I was using a scraper on the crest of a chair and got some big facets in the wood. Any tips for getting the touch to keep the chair edge smooth and round with the scraper?
Well, that's where you want to have. That's where you want to have the flexible, the thinner one. You can actually bend it around a little bit of a radius. So instead of having those facets, you could actually bend that under the finger pressure and smooth that out. So get a. Ours that one is 20 thou. Jake, are you sure? Or 15?
20.
Is it really?
Yeah.
So that's the 20 thou, and that's that flexible. And then if you compare that to the 35, That's not as flexible by a fairly good margin. Did I forget to say hello to anybody? Any more vets to say shout out to, Ken? Our next live, I guess, is this coming Saturday.
Yeah, it's a 1 hour.
We're doing a 1 hour live this Saturday, and then we'll finish it. We'll do the 1 hour wrap up on the Thursday night of the class. So you get a chance to meet all these guys. I don't know if we have any females coming to this class or not, but join us. They show up here. We have a meet and greet on Sunday night of barbecue and finger food that's awesome. And then the class starts Monday morning at 7:30, and we run till about 10 o'clock, Monday right through till Saturday night. Anything else, Frick?
Nope.
Did you get a number?
They're not keep track.
It's 1,028, he said in the comments.
1,028. So we're only giving away one prize. Well, we'll give away our three dead. We'll give away our 3 dead cats. Then we'll give away one of Kim's purses.
No,
Not sure you're gonna-
I'm gonna grab it and show you.
volunteer first responders town clerk.
Hold on, I didn't hear you.
Yeah, we got some volunteers.
What did you say? What did you say, Jake?
Asking the volunteer.
Yeah, if you're a volunteer, absolutely.
In honor of Super Day.
Yeah, Super Dave was a volunteer fireman. Yep. So here's the prize we're going to give away tonight. You guys have to sacrifice one for your wives, girlfriends. So Kim O'Connor has a business, Snippets and Stitches, but now it's being changed to, the new name is,
Stitches and Snippets?
no, she's going to shoot me because I can't remember. But you still be able to get it on Snippets and Stitches. She makes custom handbags. She makes all kinds of stuff, but very crafty. So this was a patriotic one that I had her make. So we will give that away, or one like it. She'll customize one for you. If you want to score big points with your wife, now's the time. Okay, let's give away the first dead cat. We're going to give away 3 dead cats. These sweaters, in case you're not familiar, it's called a cozy fleece. We call it a dead cat, long story. But it is incredibly warm and extremely light. People hug it.
All right, so we're giving away 3.
Yeah, first one.
I'm drawing all 3 at the same time.
You do? You are?
Yep,
You can do that?
I can do that now. All right, first one's going to John Reeder.
John Reeder in Ontario?
No, United States, it says.
Oh, okay, I know John Reeder in Ontario.
Next one's going to Gerald
Congratulations, John.
Dre Wicks in Wisconsin.
Gerald in Wisconsin, you'll need it.
And the third winner is Ward Wilson in Arizona.
Ward in Arizona, yeah, maybe at night. Okay, so next we're going to give away custom handbag by Kim O'Connor from Snippets and Stitches, now known as,
Something else.
yes, oh, can't believe I can't remember.
The winner for that is David Dixon in Farnham, Surrey, United Kingdom.
Whoa, way over in the UK. Well, David, you can make your wife very happy, girlfriend of your mother. Okay, how many first responders do we have on?
Actually, I have the...
Did any add?
So as a fun fact, 38.7% of applicants were firefighters. It was the most. 32.3% were law enforcement. And then we have a mix of paramedics, EMTs, retired firefighter, that's the same. Yep,
How many are on? How many?
32 total.
32?
Yeah.
So how many should we give away, Jack? Jake, what's the consensus, Ken? We have 9 saws, 9 different types of saws. We have 32 people that can have potential to win. How many should we give away? It's coming out of your pay, so
Well, in my case, give them all of them.
How many, Frick?
2?
Jake?
3.
Ken?
3.
And we had 32?
Yeah.
Let's give away,
10.
let's give away 5.
All right, I'm drawing.
Okay.
I'm drawing all 5. then.
All 5?
Here
So
we go.
we'll give away, we could let them just choose, because they might already have them.
All right.
So those 5 names, you guys contact us, and you have your choice of any one of those saws.
Good idea.
All right, number
Okay.
1, Robert J. Wood, Idaho.
Robert,
He's a paramedic.
congratulations,
Number 2 is Ed Anderson.
and thank you.
Ed Anderson in Ishpeming, Michigan. He's a firefighter.
Ed, thank you, sir, and congratulations.
Number 3 is Ward Wilson. Didn't he just win? He win on the last one? Maybe not. Ward Wilson, Arizona, law enforcement.
Did he get a when a dead cat?
I don't know.
There was a dead cat going to Arizona. Doesn't matter. He can wear it when he saws. Ward,
Yeah.
congratulations and thank you, sir.
He's in law enforcement. Number 4 is Jimmy Sinowski. Sinowski.
I know. Don't we know
Yeah.
Jimmy? Yeah.
So he's a firefighter in
Jimmy,
West Homestead.
thank you and thank you and you're welcome. Thank you and congratulations. And who's the last one?
Last one's going to Lane Carter in Arkansas. He's a firefighter.
Hey Lane, thank you,
So,
sir,
what was that, 3
and
firefighters?
congratulations. Where's Lane?
He's in Arkansas.
Arkansas.
So 3 firefighters, a police officer, and a paramedic. Congratulations.
Good, wonderful. All right, so the plan is you guys will contact
Support at RobCosman.com.
support at RobCosman.com.
Yeah.
That's Gina. Tell her which saw you want. I'll just run it real quick. You have your choice of the new crosscut panel saw, rip panel saw, the 3/4 saw in either the crosscut or the dovetail, the regular dovetail, the joinery crosscut, the full-size tenon, the medium tenon, or the medium crosscut. All right? Ended right on time. See you guys next Saturday. Please tune in. Tell your friends. And next Saturday will be 2-part. We'll do the first hour on Thursday, first hour on Saturday, and the final hour on Thursday during the class. It'll be our second last class of the year, class number 25. We'll see you in a week.